In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to use GitHub Codespaces to get a computer programming assignment done for Computer Science 120. You need to have a GitHub account already to get this done, and you need to have a homework assignment. So I've got my pretend homework assignment invitation link right here in my text editor. And to get started, I'm going to sign in to GitHub. Once I'm signed into GitHub, I can take this link. This is an invitation link to GitHub Classroom. But as long as you have access to a repository that you want to work on and have Codespaces enabled, you can do this. So I'm going to load up that link. This assignment is a team assignment, and I don't have a team to join, so I'm going to create a team. If you're doing this with Computer Science 120, you probably already have teams set up from your previous assignments, or you might have been assigned a team, or just follow the instructions for your instructor. So I'm going to make a team for myself, and then I'm going to accept this assignment. And then once that's done, you have to wait a few seconds, maybe a minute, for GitHub to create your repository, and then just refresh the page. And you'll have your GitHub repository all set to go, and that's this right here. Already has a button that you can push to get to Codespaces, but I'd rather go to the repository first and make sure that I'm comfortable with all the different parts of this repository. So you have the display here where my mouse is showing you all the different files and directories in the repository. There's a view of the README that describes the homework assignment. And then there's this green button that if you click will have links that allow you to clone the repository onto your local computer. That's what we typically do if you have your own Linux computer or your own computer with the development environment set up. What I want to do in this video is show you how to use Codespaces. And Codespaces allows you to run a computer or a container on GitHub's cloud services. So you click on Codespaces, right? So just to show you how I did that again, I go to the green button and I click on the Codespaces, and then I create Codespace on main. This will take roughly 2 minutes to create your Codespace. This downloads a container from where we host a special container for our course. And it loads up the container and builds a virtual computer inside of GitHub. Once it's built the container, it will start up something that will look a lot like Visual Studio Code. In fact, you see the Visual Studio Code logo right there. On the left-hand side of the window, you have the Explorer, and this will show the different files and directories in your repository. So notice that this is the name of the repository where my mouse is, CPSC 999 Lab 01 Team Solo. And if I go back to this tab, which is my GitHub repository, you'll see that it matches the name of my repository. Here is part 1, and let me break this out so you can see them side by side. You can see that this part 1 is this part 1 right there. And inside of part 1 is the file hello.cc. And if I click on it, it will open it up in another tab over here. And this is my text editor. So I've got my text editor open, and I can make changes here. I also, down here at the bottom, this is essentially a Unix shell. This is a bash shell that's running inside of GitHub that will allow me to send commands. So some basic commands would be like to type ls. That would show me what's inside my computer. You can see that there is a readme.md and a part 1, and I can cd into part 1 just like I would on a regular computer and type ls, and I can see that there's the hello.cc. Let's try compiling it. So we're using the Clang++ compiler, and everything here works just like it would on a regular Linux computer. Hit enter, it compiles the program, and you can see that there's a new file right there, a.out. And I can run that program, and it says hello world. So that demonstrates that we've got ourselves access to a Linux computer right there that has the commands we need to do some C++ programming. So let's try making some changes. Let's put a header at the top of our file. This is something that we need to do for Computer Science 120. And I'll pretend I'm a student, so I'll use the domain that students use. So we need our name, our email address, we need our GitHub username, and then we need to list our partners. Now, I don't have a partner, but I'll pretend I'm partnering with one of my colleagues, Kevin Wortman, who's another professor. And there, I've added a header. Now, typically, if I was using VS Code on a regular computer, I'd have to push Control S or Command S to save the file or go up to the file menu, but you'll notice that there's no file menu here. Magically, it will save your work. It takes about a split second for when you stop typing to save it. And once it's saved, it will change it only inside the container, not on GitHub. That's the important thing. So remember, it saves it here inside this container. And let's make a small change here. Let's change world to say Michael. So I made that change. Now I come back to the terminal. That's the lower part of the screen. And I use the clang++ command again to compile. And if I run the program again by typing /a.out, you can see that it has changed from hello world to hello Michael. And we can add more messages here. So there, I've added another sentence. You wait a split second, it's going to save it. I click in the lower part of the window and I type out the command again, clang++ hello.cc. And I run the command again after it's compiled. And you can see it when I make those changes and I compile and I can run it again and it does save the changes. Now, this doesn't change what's inside of GitHub. This only changes what's inside this virtual computer, this container that's running inside of GitHub's cloud. And you can also notice that there's an M right here that's telling me that that file's been modified and that I want to send it back to GitHub. So in the terminal, I can type git status and it will show me that hello.cc is modified, just like that M right there. So what I can do is I can commit hello.cc, well, I'll give a message. I put a header at the top and changed the message, the program prints. That's a reasonable message. And then I'll give the name of the file. So now that's committed it. Now, once you commit it and you type git status, it'll show that that commit has been made, but my branch is one commit ahead of wherever I cloned it from. So over here in this window, if I refresh this, nothing's changed. You can see that the comments here still say initial commit or something else like that. But it doesn't have the commit that I just made because I haven't pushed it. So going back down here, I do the final step and I push the code back to GitHub. Coming back to this window right here, refresh it. You can see my comment shows up right there. And I like to verify things when I start out using something new. So if I click on hello.cc, I should be able to see the file. And I can definitely see all the stuff that's there matches what I have over here. And that's essentially how you can use GitHub Codespaces to be able to work on a repository, make changes, compile them, run them inside this container, and then also commit and push back the changes to GitHub. Now, there's one other thing that we have to do is we need to exit this. Because when you run a Codespace, somebody's got to pay for it. And GitHub provides you with 3,000 free minutes, I believe, and a little bit of storage that you can use to run these Codespaces, but you can't, it's not unlimited. It's not all for free. It's free to a certain amount. So what I recommend doing is just closing this window once you've committed and pushed all your work, and then you come back over here and you click the green button again, and you can see your Codespace is still running and it's active. And in fact, you could reconnect to that Codespace one more time just by clicking on it. It'll open up that window again and it says as though you've never left. But I'm done working. I've completed my homework. I'm very satisfied with it. So what I want to do is I want to stop the Codespace. That will stop the computer that it's running on so I don't get billed for any more minutes. Now, it's still there, and it still takes up space, so I'm still being billed for how much space it takes. But I can also delete that code space. Now, once I delete that code space, the code space is gone, but my work is already in GitHub because I pushed it back. That's the important part. You have to push back your work to GitHub to make sure that your work is there. If your work is in GitHub, like I see it now, then your instructors will see it, and when it gets graded, it'll be graded and everything will be fine. But please don't forget to push your work back. But if you want to do some more work, you can always go back and create another code space. Now, every time you create a brand new code space, it does take a little bit of time to build that image, to build that container, and to connect to it. So to save time, you can just keep that code space running, but remember, as long as you keep it running, it will bill you. Great, so now it's built. I can make some more changes, make some more commits, whatever I want to do. It's the same exact thing. Now, I'm going to stop this code space. Let's thinking about it. Anyhow, the other thing I'd like to show you is where you can keep track of your billing. So if you come over to your profile, again, I'm signed into GitHub, and right here, this is a little icon that represents me. You can see my GitHub username right there. And what you want to do is you want to find your settings. If you go to your settings, you can look for billing and plans. And under this, you'll see that we have plans and usage. Now, I have a regular free account from GitHub, and it includes a whole lot of stuff at no cost. But if I want to use Codespaces, you can see over here, I've got a limit. I've got a limit of 120 hours that I can use. And I also have so much storage. Sorry, I didn't mean to scroll. I have only so much storage that I can use. So that's 15 gigabytes per month and 120 hours per month. This is more than enough for any student who wants to do some beginning programming projects, or even a hobbyist who wants to do some beginning programming projects. But be aware that if you just leave that code space running, it will accrue time in this panel, and eventually you'll run out. So it's really important that if you use a code space, and let's go back to our repository, it's really important that if you have created a code space, that you turn it off. And for whatever reason, my code space is not showing up. It's a terrible demonstration. Let me refresh the page. There it is. Make sure that you stop that code space, because otherwise it's just going to eat up all your free time. And then when you're done with it, if you don't need it anymore, make sure you delete it, so that way you free up that storage. That's a really important step. I hope this gives you enough information to be able to know how to use GitHub Codespaces to get work done for Computer Science 120.